Hello, this is watercolor lesson number 3, and you can see the picture below that I am using for this lesson. It is a road in Central California during the fall, and right now we are in the fall season. I know we think about the colors of things changing, and it doesn't really change all that much in Central California, but we could use our imagination and make it change just a little bit more, perhaps on some parts. You can already kind of see it there with the yellowish, brownish green on the left side a bit more versus more of that yellow green with more blue in it and not so much brown in it on the right side here. So I thought, well, you know what, I might play with that a little bit and add just a few more yellow tones into the left side of the picture over here. And in this one, you will also see that there's a mountain in the background. It adds a little extra interest in there, and a road. The nice thing about a road is it's great for compositions. A road always guides our eyes into the picture because it has lines on the left and right, and those lines, they converge, they get smaller and smaller, and they go into the picture, and so our eyes naturally go, what's over there, what's just down the road, let's take a look, right? And well, if you're in a car, you keep driving and you find out there's a pumpkin patch down there. There really is one, but not exactly down that road. You have to turn left and go like another mile or so. But anyway, here, that's this picture. I think it's taken last year in the fall. Okay, and then I also made a little sketch here for our composition. We can take a look and see the idea, the composition idea. In the picture, the road turns a little bit. Let me see if I can get closer to this. I know I'll have to just adjust my, yeah, that's better. In the picture, you could see that the road curves a little bit, maybe if you look carefully, but I'm going to emphasize that because it makes it more interesting compositionally, because in our brains we think, oh, what's just around the bend over there. And then I've also got the trees coming up a little bit more than they actually are. It gives us more of that, going into the distance feeling when the trees get smaller as they're going into the distance. And then our eyes tend to point to the background, which has the road here and also the mountain over here. I don't want the mountain to be too high, and I don't want it to be too dark. I'm going to lighten it up a bit so that it pushes the mountain back into the distance a little bit more, and creates that feeling of, oh, look into the distance and see the beautiful things. You can see there's a lot of greenery growing on the mountain, but the greens on the mountain are a bit more bluish. So the greens here are more blue looking than the greens over here. And then these ones over on this side are more yellowish. Okay, so the whole point of composition, of course, is to guide our eye into the picture. And it's very helpful to have something that has nice lighting on it. Couple of tips about if you're going to take a photo as a reference and use that for, and you want something that has nice lighting on it in order to get a good reference. If you have something where the light is shining directly on the front, so if the light was, say, behind you as a photographer, you see everything, it's all pretty, but you don't get as much of the light and dark with the shadows that way. Personally, I think that as a reference photo, it works better if you have at least some shadows in there to go with the light to make things look more rounded, and then that can help with the, like it's going into the distance, there's overlapping objects, things like that. Some people really enjoy having this, the shadows going over the road. I've seen some beautiful paintings like that. I like that idea too. It's kind of fun. Okay, so there's some shadows crossing the road here. We've got shadow here. We've got some shadow here. And if you look and think, okay, well, where's the light going to be coming from in this picture? Aha, if the shadow from these trees is on the road, that means my lighting is coming from this direction. It's coming from the left side. So a lot of times light coming from the left side works well. Light coming from the right side works well. Light coming a little bit more from behind can also create a really interesting effect, as long as everything is not totally dark. But you think about what angle the light is coming from, and is it showing what you want it to show? And that's an interesting thing too. Like if you have shadows at different times of day, it might show off different parts. So like if the light was over here shining this way, then these parts will be dark and it won't emphasize the greens on that tree as much, right? So time of day, lighting, all of that. Okay, let's do it. But also one more tip is for composition here. Notice that the horizon line, or the where the road stops, and the sky and what's above you is going to start, like the mountain is above us. I've put that horizon lower down. It's not in the middle. It just works better for composition if a horizon line is either lower or higher. It makes it more interesting. Otherwise, things tend to get split in half and you're like, I don't know which way I'm supposed to look. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to shrink down this picture here so that we will see what we are working on a little better. Good. Maybe I'll push this way over, and that gives us a chance to also look at the palette a bit more. Oh, look, it's clean again. Yes, I have been cleaning my palette, so that is good. It's helpful for me. And also, yeah, lost my train of thought. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we're gonna start. And there will be layering here again, because notice how dark some of those dark areas are, and I can't really do it all in one layer. So I won't. But I will start by sketching in a sort of composition like I did before. Look, I've got a reference already here for me. I did that beforehand. This is a really helpful idea too, is if you sketch out a composition beforehand of like, oh yeah, I want it to look like this, because sometimes a photo is really complicated and you're like, where was I going with this again? I can't remember. Okay, so the road, our road is not going to be too high. I'm going to stay fairly low. And it comes out very wide. I want to make sure that if it's going to go into the distance, it has to be wide to start with and then get skinny. Okay, here's that little curve in the road. If I don't like how I did the curve to start off with, I'm like, right? Then wipe it, dab it up, and try again. There we go. There's my road with a curve in it. Okay, and then I'm going to add some areas for the trees. The faraway trees on the faraway part of the road are low down because they look smaller due to being farther away. Okay, and I am exaggerating the perspective in this one somewhat. It's not exactly according to the photo. Perhaps it will make it look like that road is going farther away than it is. Okay. So I have one big tree area over here. This is number 2, and then that's number 3 on the left side. This exact shape does not matter, and you don't want that too dark. You're going to want it to just kind of blend into the background with the leaves as you're going along. Okay, and then on the right side, I have a space of some ground here before the tree trunks start. This is all dark on this side, so it kind of blends together. But here, there's that light area. Okay, so this part of the road, on this side, the tree is taller. It's actually closer than these ones. It gives it a nice overlap. And then trying to decide where that second one, how tall am I going to make it? Something like that. And over here on the edge, nice and big. There's a lot of shadow in here, in that area. Nice big billowing clouds, right? Billowing trees, can they? Something, I don't know. Okay, and then lastly, I want a little bit of mountain in the background. I know in the photograph it's a little bit more flattened out, but I gave it a bit more angle in this drawing, in the drawn version. I think it helps something compositionally, stylistically, something. Okay, so here we go. We have the drawing in place and we are ready to add some washes. And don't worry if some of those the color here disappears if you're adding a wash on, right? As long as you know where you're going and you can get everything in the right place. I'm going to start with our very back sky in blue, the light blue. Scoot that over a little more. I think we can see it better. Plenty of water because it will be light. And you can overlap a little bit with where the trees are. It might help to blend that that line away some as we're going along. Okay, sky. You'll notice that I'm dripping. You'll notice that this ground area is fairly light as well. And I will keep that fairly light. I'm gonna add like a little bit of an interesting twist in there as far as color goes. So we look at it, we go, oh, it's gray because it's blacktop, right? It's gray. Interesting thing is sometimes you may notice, if you look and you are like, that shadows, when you're outdoors, shadows will tend to appear more towards blue, and areas where the sunlight is hitting will tend to look more yellow. So if you look and compare in the photograph the shadow area to the light area of the blacktop, the light area actually does look a bit more yellow. Weird. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to take some black, but I'm also going to, let's see what happens. It's probably just going to turn green here because I know what happens with some of these colors. If the black already has some blue pigment in it, it will tend to turn green, but I don't know if this one does. Oh, it does. Okay. So it's actually, that's just going to green it up. I'm not really sure that I like that. You know what? I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do it in, I'm going to see about doing it in 2 layers so that it doesn't mix. Let's just try it. Let's try it. I don't know. We're going to play around with that color some and see what happens. But I'm going to start with the black. So I just wiped that. I'm like, I don't like it. Let's not do that. Okay, so black, but it's really just going to be a light gray to start off with. Okay. Okay, and if some of this is a little too wet, maybe I'll I squeezed out my brush. I'm going to soak up some of this water because I put a lot on there. Okay, and we're noticing how this and this are as far as value, light and dark. So this is a value scale here, that light and dark, it's fairly similar right now, which is good. I want it to stay light in the end. Okay, and now for some yellowish fall colors on the left side here. I'm going to start with the yellow ochre, the tan color. And then as we layer it, we'll see, if we need to add more of a certain color. But I could just go over everything in there that I want as that color. And I can take it all the way down into the dark area because I'm going to add more there anyway. Okay, and then on this side, I'm going to push this tree back a little bit farther than these ones. So I'm going to make these trees, the light area, slightly more yellow than this one. I think it might be easier if I do this first and then compare and, add a little bit more blue to the color that I want to use here, and then add a little more blue to the color I want to use back here. So let's do that. I will take some of my yellow. I'm going to start off pretty yellow, a little bit of blue in there, and make a yellow green. More yellowy, not too blue. And go for it. Okay, I think this is probably where you see some streaks or something, and then all of a sudden it evens out and it's like, oh, it's fine. Okay, so then here I will add a touch more blue. Okay, that was a lot of a touch. Let's try again. Okay, yes, there, that's better. Okay. Oh, this is looking a bit more blue, this tree. Okay, and then for that background color, it's still a green, but now it's a blue-green. So I add a little bit more blue to it. Let's see if that's working. Yep. Okay, and then I don't need to worry about the shadows just yet, because those will be added on. And then over here I have a tannish, brownish color. Let's see about using some brown with a lot of water. I think I will start with that. And then if it looks like it needs to be more yellowed, then I will add that. I think with this one there's a little bit more of, as you go along, kind of figuring out where are the colors going to go, or like what colors are needed to make the final colors look correct. Okay. Okay, now at this point it might all be quite wet. We'll see about that. Is it very wet? Not too wet, not too wet. I think that we can go ahead and add some shadows across the road, because even if that's not exactly as dry as we want, it will still work. Because even if the color bleeds a bit, it's still going to work. So I'm going to want it to be darker, and then whatever areas that don't get dark enough, I can continue and add a bit more. So I'm going to use a little dark blue in there. Let's try that and see if that kind of makes the shadows look a bit more blue. I think it will do. Okay, getting a little, I don't know, rhymey. Okay, and I know I've got the big brush. You can also use the medium brush for that. Hey, look, it's kind of like when you have those ripples and you don't want everything to be all evened out, but it's got to go across the road. It has to the shadow needs to lay down more flat so that it doesn't look like the road is too lumpy, even though the shadow is kind of lumpy. But it's just helpful if you go across the road. So all of this edge here of the road, that has to all be dark, right? So that's where the trees are. That's where the shadow is coming from. But it will go out across the road to different lengths, different areas. Okay, and that shadow's going way out to that whole edge of the road. Trying not to have just stripes. I can see that this is probably going to be, it's probably going to end up too light over here. We'll see though after this dries. A little more something. Okay, and let's go for some shadows up here in these trees. For that, this side, I'm going to use more of a brown, and on this side I'll use more blue in the shadow. Because look how dark and blue this shadow looks compared to this one. It looks more brownish. So I will take my brown, and then I'm going to also add some of the blue and some of my yellow ochre in there. Brown, the dark blue, and yellow ochre. Okay, and then I need to remember I'm thinking of each of the tree areas separately, that where's the shadow on each one. And where is it basically? It's kind of on this side. Some of the light is shining through the trees, but I'm not going to get too fiddly with it and do like every little piece of shadow right now, right? Just, okay, I have a darker area. Okay, and then I've got another tree here. The top part has more light on it, but underneath has more shadow. And then way in the back we see a bit of shadow at the bottom part of the trees. Sometimes I just start wanting to fiddle and add details. Okay. Yes. Even though it's not quite time for that. Okay, other side of the road. More of a bluish shadow. Okay, so I will make that out of the dark blue, but with a touch of my yellow. So that I get a really dark blue-green in there. Okay, and then the light side will be on this side of the tree. The shadow will be towards the bottom or towards the right side. So here is where the shadow is. And once again, you can use the middle size brush if you're like, wait, this brush is too big. But I want to try to prevent myself from getting too detailed to start with. Okay, next tree here. Shadow is all of this down here through here. And it is not just totally even, right? There's all the tree leaves, the branches and things. Okay, and I'm going to go and just kind of connect that a little bit. So a bit of shadow underneath. And then this tree, we've got some shadow on this side. Okay, that's lightening up some. And the background. I don't want that shadow to get too dark. I think one layer of a blue-green may do it. But I'm going to use my medium-sized brush when I do that one. Okay. So I already have some blue-green mixed here. And it looks like it's about the right color. If it doesn't look like the right color, of course you can mix maybe some more blue in it. Okay, so the mountain's light is shining from this direction, and I've got a shadow on this side of the mountain and in the crevices. There's trees growing on there, so if I make little brush strokes that go up and down, it will give me some texture for the trees in the background. Okay, and there's a little bit of another edge over here. But if that ends up looking like, oh no, it's making that side look dark, then, maybe don't add it or dab it up or something. Because I'd still want to have the light area be on the left side. I'm going to put something right there. Okay, so the lightest areas of these trees are here. I'm starting to darken the darkest areas, but it looks a little weird and choppy so far. I don't have anything in the middle. I don't have any in-between type of color. So let's go back over here, and I know it's like a brownish green. I will try to warm it up and make it a little bit more orangey too. And we'll see. I know I have a tendency to just get the color, like whatever I see, there it is. But I'm going to try to change it, and let's see if I can do that. Okay, so if I wanted a bit more orange, some red and yellow. Let's see what happens there. Oh, you can't see that there. Some red and yellow. That way it's a bit more vibrant than the yellow ochre. Okay. I don't want to cover all of the lightest, brightest areas, but anything that looks like it's medium, anything that's medium, then I'm going to cover that, which will be, I'm going to start in the back here this time. If I leave just the very top of that tree as the lightest area, then it will look more like it's three-dimensional and it's turning. Okay, and we might need a couple more layers of things. Okay, I'm onto this middle tree here. Okay, everything down at the bottom will be darker, so there's nothing super bright down there. And the tree closest to us. Part way. It still looks flat to me. The mountain is getting there. But that looks flat still. The road is supposed to be flat, so that's good. And then we have this over here. Okay, so I'm going to leave that and go back over to the trees on the left side, and I will start doing an in-between color, a nice medium green. I'll use the light blue and yellow. Okay, and once again thinking about where the light is shining, here's where the light is shining on this tree. If this is the dark area and I'm pulling forward out of the dark area, then I don't go all the way to this edge of the light area. Leave some space. Okay, then this is this tree and the shadow of it. Come up around a bit more. And towards the bottom, not quite as much light there. And the tree way in the back. Oh, it's not way in the back, but behind that one. I have a sense that this one's going to need a little touch of yellow to pop it away from the mountain. Right now it looks like, okay, I know it's in front of the mountain, but it doesn't quite pop out. I think that a little yellow in there will be helpful for that. Okay, and then I'm also going to look over here. That's light. It's nice and light. It's kind of peachy color, which I really don't mind. But right where the ground and the trees are going to meet, I'm going to put just a bit of dark brown to indicate that there is a shadow, a bit of a shadow down there. Just that we don't see much because of the angle that the sun is shining. Okay, now I'm gonna see about this idea of adding yellow into the light areas of the ground, or at least some of the light areas of the ground. Let's see what happens. Taking some yellow with water. Let's see if I like that. Oh, it's very green. Not recommended. How about like that? Better. Better. If you have just a little bit, I think it works. If you have a lot, then no, it's just going to turn it green, and I don't think it. Ah, there we go. Yep. So, see, I dabbed that up, and now I just had a little bit. Now it feels like the sun is hitting it with just a tiny bit of yellow in there. But I think it would be great if there's just a bit more blue over on this side. The shadow's already pretty dark, and I don't really want to darken it a whole lot more. But I think if I take just a bit of my light blue and touch it more on the left side of the road, maybe around where my shadows are a bit, I think it will help to feel more like the shadow. Okay, and I know there's a little bit of that wet there and it's gonna spread, but I think I might kind of like that, where it's spreading some of the blue here and then some of the yellow there. It could be interesting. Later on, I might actually want to soften up some of these shadows, but we'll see, because we're not really done with the trees yet, and then see if it kind of matches together with it or not. Okay, so we definitely need to darken into these shadows more. So let's go around again, another layer. You'll notice I switched to my medium brush, so I will be able to do it more in like little pieces of details. On this side, I'm keeping it more towards brown. I'm gonna go for some, I think a brown mixed with green. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I'm using my olive green in here, plenty of olive green with my brown. Go into the darks, and then I can change the direction of my brush and go in different directions when I'm making some of these strokes, because that will help it to feel more like the leaves are going in different directions. If I just go like dot, 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 it's like, oh, look there's just an even like amount of dots on here. What is going on? Is this, is it polka dot? And that's something that you don't want it to look like. You don't want it to look like a polka dot thing. So, like if you catch yourself after, say, 3 strokes and you're like, no, change direction. This has to be different. But I'm trying to go in a bunch of different directions. And I'm looking at where I see some darker areas in the leaves. It's kind of all over, but trying to group it a bit more. So that it will feel like it's turning and getting rounded. I think it'll be more successful on this side because of how the light is shining. Here it's all kind of dispersed. My brain is like, oh, what's going on? Okay. Okay, but this here is darker. On the bottom of this tree, and then the top is lighter. So this one, it's a little bit of a brain twister. This here is getting easier. It's like, oh, okay, the dark is down at the bottom, coming up some in the middle. Okay, gonna put a few pieces in here to give it a bit more detail. And then the far away ones are even easier because it's like, oh, the dark is at the bottom, and then we transition as we go up. And something I learned from my teacher is connect your darks. So when in doubt, if you're not really sure, it's helpful if the dark patched areas are grouped together, and then it looks more like a whole thing instead of like pieces. Okay, that's looking too light down here, huh? Like, why is the light hitting down there? So I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to put some green in there. Because I keep seeing the green. I'm like, yes, it has to have some green. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay, not too bright at the bottom of the trees where the light is not shining as much. Good. Yeah, that feels better. Okay, the left side, it's starting to feel like trees. The right side, we'll go back there and add some more. I'm going to get really into the darks here. Get the dark blue. Okay, I'll put just a touch of yellow in there so that it's got a bit of green in with the dark area. So light side, dark side. This one, light side, dark side. You can see a couple of shadows showing up over here. Not all the way over to the light side, but the way it's the branches hang down or the leaves hang down. It's kind of interesting. Trying to, if I see just a flat line, I'm trying to break it up because trees are not like that. Okay, and then over to this one. Look for the darkest areas. I got over here. Okay. It's looking like it's got a good amount of light versus dark in there. I am still gonna work a little bit on some color things. I know that in the picture some areas in the front here on the tree are darker, but I like how the light really helps to pop it out. I'm gonna add a little detail in there, but not darken all of this as much as what I see in the photo, because then it creates more of the 3D, oh, it's, like it's rounded and it's coming out look. Let's do a bit more orange on this side. Okay, so I can use my red and yellow. To create a bit more orange. So the orange, I can use it in, if I put it into the darker areas, it will darken it, but it'll also give it more of a pop of color. If I want to make some of those look like, the light is shining through the leaves and there is a bit more color down in there. Or if I use it up towards the lighter areas, it can give that fall color look, some details of fall color. Okay, yep, a little touch here and there. Let's see where it needs it. Make sure I save some light areas, but I don't have to save a lot of the really lightest, brightest areas. In fact, I don't have to save that corner. But if I save the whole top edge of this, see how it looks like the light is shining down right on the top of those trees? gives it a kind of a warm glow feeling. Okay, on this side I'm going to do more yellow in some of the lighter areas. My yellow's getting a little messy looking, but it's okay. I can just clean it off. Clean it off because I put a lot of the blue I've been mixing. I put some blue and some red on it. So there we go. Clean it off. Looks better. Better. And then I can get some yellow. So I was thinking I will put a little touch of yellow over here on the edge of this tree. So I thought that will help to make this pop out. It won't lighten it, right? It won't lighten it, but it will kind of pop it forward from here because the yellow will stand out more than what's back here. And I still have more contrast in this tree as opposed to the mountains in the background. Okay, and then because these trees have more contrast than this one, that will tend to pop these ones forward. And I'm going to do a little yellow in certain areas on here too. And on this one, yeah, it feels like it needs a little bit more green detail. See how this is just like one big piece? It's kind of zigzaggy, which is great, but I feel like this line is too even still. I mean, the width of it is too even. It still needs some playing around, so I'm going to do that. I'll make a bit more of a greenish color. I think that's too much blue in there. I need it to be more of a yellow green. That's better. Okay, and just do a few more pieces of detail to make that line not all look like it's evenly spaced. And then I'm going to break it up over here too. Little, that spot just kind of felt a little empty. I thought it needs a needs something there, and maybe a little up here. Okay, I think we're almost there. What I think would be good here is to darken my really dark area one more time, because I didn't really totally darken it, and it is dry enough now that I can do more. I can do another layer on there. So I think I'm going to pick the black green. Let's see how this does. That will do it. And I'll leave the bottom edge of that kind of uneven, kind of like I'm seeing some bits of things going back into the shadow. And I don't need to darken all of the dark area, but right where I really want it to get dark. And there's something I want in here. See how like this is a light area? It's like, what happened here? Why is it not, the dark is not connected? But I just want a tiny, tiny bit because I like how this piece of green in the picture comes out. So I don't want all of that to disappear. I want to keep a lot of that and have just a bit, kind of like I've got some dark shadow just right at the bottom of it. And that line looks too straight to me coming down, so I'm going to break it up. Better. Yes. Okay, it's fall. It's fall. The trees are changing color a little bit. I know it looks kind of brown. I think when I look at it here, in my view, it actually does look a bit more orange. I think maybe on the screen it looks a bit more brown. This actually looks a bit too pink on mine, but I can make it a little bit more dull using some of my yellow ochre. But I don't want it to darken up a lot, right? Don't darken up too much. Not too much, just a little. And texture doesn't hurt that either. If you put a little texture, because it's by the side of the road. I'm not sure if it's rocks or bark chips, but anyway, it does have texture in there. All right, I think that we've got it. We've got it. Today's painting is a lovely fall day. And we're going for a drive down the road, and we can imagine the pumpkins and other wonderful things that are at the end of our destination, just down the road. Okay, I will see you later.